everybody, time for another video. I'm out hiking at the Whitewater Center. Gorgeous day to be out hiking and moving, and I thought I would make a video, and this video is going to be about what to consider when you are choosing an ultra marathon to do, whether it be your first one or if you've done them before. Some things that you want to kind of take into consideration before making that commitment to sign up for a race. It's so exciting when you do that, and it's fun to start planning it and training for a race, but you definitely want to be sure that you have chosen the right one. From mistakes, I have been a little too ambitious, and I've picked races that were probably not my ideal race to do, so I thought I would make a video and some things to consider before making that commitment and hitting that submit button to make a payment and commit yourself to a race. So that's what this video will be about, and I hope you can find some useful information about it or from it. And if you have some tips that I leave out, please feel free to share them. The more knowledge people have, the better prepared they can be. So that's what this is all about. So the first thing I will consider when I'm doing a race is the time of year to do it. I prefer running in the cold. I'm a cold weather runner, and the heat just really sucks the life out of me. So I prefer doing races in the winter, the fall ideally. And there are a lot of races in the fall, so that's lucky for me. But there are some races in the winter as well. So I'll choose the time of year that I want to race and kind of go from there. And then I will consider location, of course. How far away is it from me? What kind of area it is. So maybe something new that I can explore or see, a state that I haven't been to before, or a town. It's always fun to make a whole adventure out of it. It doesn't always have to be just about the race. It could be the whole experience. I'll also consider if I'm going to do this race solo, which I usually do, or if I'm going to have a crew or a family come with me. So that definitely. Come on, puppies. Here they come. The little monkeys. There they are. Say hello, guys. There's Summer and Ollie and Millie. There they are. They want treats, but they have to wait. So, logistically, you want to see if you're doing this race solo or if you're bringing people with you. Of course, further away, you have to consider either driving there, time off of work, hotel accommodations. If you're solo, I try to look for a race that I could camp at the location the night before. That's always a lot easier. Or car camp. Either I can't camp with my tent or car camp. Oftentimes I do that. It's nice to do that because after the race you can take a nap. You got your setup already there and ready to go, and you can get a nap before you head home. Done that many times. So if you're going solo, it's a lot easier. If you've got a crew, which is always nice to have, take into consider accommodations. So time of the year and who's going with you and location, that would be the top priorities. So then after I've kind of narrowed down a few races that I'm considering, the next thing I look for, and this is important, is the elevation gain of this race. You know, everybody's fitness level is different, but if you live in Florida and you're not used to a lot of elevation in your races, going and doing a race in Ohio, is going to be quite the shock to your body. So I always look up the elevation gain in a race. It's always good to know. And then I also know if it's a really hilly course, or if it's a higher elevation gain in the race, I will definitely hit the hills a lot harder than I typically would for a race, just to be prepared for that. So don't let it scare you off, definitely not, but just take it into consideration and be prepared and be ready. Then I will consider, I'd really try to get as much information about the race as I can through YouTube, Googling it, race reports. A lot of times I'll post my race reports for all these races on Facebook or on a blog, and so people can read and experience, and that's been very helpful for me and other people's experience and what they went through, how they prepared, what they encountered in the race. So definitely do some research on the race and see, you know, what information you can get about it. Another reason why I'm doing these videos is I'm going to be doing a lot of videos on various races that I've done and talking about them, so that it could be a resource for people that are either signed up for it or about to. So so they can have kind of a heads up on some stuff. So I will do that. I will get some information, as much information as I can on the race. And that's good to know, because I've done races that were drastically different. I've done races in the desert. I've done races in the heat of Florida in the middle of summer. I've done races in the middle of winter that were freezing cold with icy rain. So, and then I've done races that were on the beach, and the whole race was on the sand. Those are really fun, but you got to definitely be prepared and trained for that. So you need to know what you're getting into before you sign up and commit, is all I'm saying. After I've figured out what the elevation gain is, I try to take a look at the time allowance for the race, how much time you have available to complete the race. So this is important for a couple reasons. One, I'm a slow, steady runner, so I kind of cruise along. I'm not there to be first or win the race or place. If that happens, it's just a fluke, usually by accident, or I'm having a really good day. I don't set out in a race with a goal to do that. A lot of people do, and more power to you, because I give it to you. To be on the top of your game like that is intense, and a lot of stress and pressure. And I'm not that kind of runner. I like to just go slow and steady, poke along, and for that reason I need to know what the time cutoffs are. Cutoff for the aid stations, cutoff for the whole race in general. Not that I'm afraid that I won't make the cutoff, but you never know what's going to happen in a race. You never know if you're going to get really low on calories or get dehydrated, or what the case may be, where you're going to have to take some time to sit, eat something, maybe take a rest, or change out some gear, or whatever the case may be, and that takes time. So if you see a race that's a 100-miler and you say, oh, it's a 30-hour cutoff, that's no problem. Well, it's not a problem, because you know that's a good time frame to do a race, but just take into consideration that you know you may not have slept very much or very well leading up to the race, and you're going to need that 30-minute power nap or at some point. That's going to take time off of your race, and or whatever the case may be. Just plan for the unexpected, because the unexpected always happens. I've seen people with severe chafing issues, and it's really taken them a long time to get through the race because they had to go drastically slower. So you never know. So figure out what the time cutoffs are, and I usually take a screenshot of it or write it down so that I'm aware of what they are at the aid stations, so that I don't have to stress about it and keep running in a panic trying to make all the cutoffs. I can just know what they are, know what's coming up, and and kind of cruise along. That's my strategy. So try to do that. One other thing about location, one thing that I do is I like to go 2 days ahead of the race before the race starts. So if the race starts on a Friday morning, I'll try to leave my house to drive up there on a Wednesday. So I get all the traveling done on a Wednesday. I try to sleep really hard on Wednesday night. And that'll be my main rest night, my main rest day. And then on Thursday, I just take it easy the whole day, get last minute preparations, food, packet pickup, listen to any pre-race meetings, scope out where I need to go, and just have a relaxing day so that on Friday I am as rested and well prepared as possible to get going. So take that in consideration when you're choosing a race too. What day it starts and the time it starts. I've run into that mistake a couple times. I found out the hard way that I don't do as well with races that start at 4 p.m. And there's a few of them that do that. They start on 4 p.m. on a Friday and end on Sunday. I'm a morning runner, and I start out my races strong when I can start in the mornings. So, and I don't mind what time in the morning. I don't care if it starts at 4 in the morning or 5 or 6, 7 or 8. It doesn't matter. But I like to start in the mornings. But there are quite a few races out there that start later. So keep that in mind and take in consideration when it's a good time for you to start your race. I get tired in the evenings. I'm not a night person, so running overnight is a challenge for me sometimes because I do get tired. So I take that into consideration if it's a late start. Not that I won't do the race for sure. Just need to be prepared for it and be ready. That's all. But they'll have all that listed. A lot of the races will have all these details listed out for you. Some races don't. So you need to kind of do your research before you commit to it. If you're having a lot of questions and concerns about these races, you need to try to find those answers and get that information before you commit to it. I've made that mistake before. I've committed to races and I did not know certain details of the race, logistic-wise or course-wise, and I'd asked the race director and get no response at all. So yeah, sometimes they just don't even email you back at all, or they give you an answer that is not completely clear or what you need to know. So the races that are very well detailed, listed in their race description, the good course description, I lean more towards those races because it's well organized, it's well put together, and if I do have any questions or concerns, they're usually right on top of it to answer them. And some of those things are quite important, and you need to know for training purposes. So take that in consideration. Another thing to add with elevation is you want to consider altitude for these races. Some of the races that I've done have had not only high elevation gain, but they've been in altitude. So that's another unique challenge in itself. When you're running in altitude, and I would say anything in the, well, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and our sea level is at 700 feet. So we feel the altitude when we're doing these races, when we're going above 7,000 feet. So I didn't really start getting a headache or feeling kind of nauseous until I would hit 10,000 feet. Luckily for the races I've done so far, we didn't stay at altitude for very long, but I did take that in consideration when I did have to go and do a race that went that high. I would bring some ginger candy, and that always seemed to settle my stomach and help my nausea, and I would get through it just fine. But you need to be ready for that. I've seen a lot of people really get quite sick and have to drop out of the race because of altitude. And don't let it scare you off by any means. Just be prepared. The 2 races that I did that were pretty high in altitude, I did go to try to acclimate a couple days before those races. So take that in consideration, because that'll logistically make a difference when you get there. For example, when I did the Tahoe 200, I went there, let's see, I think I spent 3 days before the race started, and I stayed at 7,000 feet before the race even started. So then by the time the race came around and we did have to go to 10,000 feet, I was okay. Just a little nausea, but nothing bad at all. So as much time as you can to go and acclimate. I know that's not always feasible with work schedules and family schedules, but do what you can. If you've got a race that's at altitude, take that into consideration and try to be prepared. So another thing I'll consider when I'm trying to choose a race is logistically, what accommodations do you have that are around? I've had races that I've gone to where there's no grocery stores around you. It's in the middle of nowhere, little towns, which are always cute and fun, but sometimes it's nice to go to a grocery store right before the race to get some last minute snacks and water and ice, whatever you may need. A lot of the times the race will provide all of that, but if there's anything that you specifically want to have, you need to go and get them. Put them in your drop bags, have your crew have it ready for you, and so kind of see where you are, what your accommodations would be. That would be a question to ask the race director if you don't know, or a Facebook group. That a lot of these races will have a Facebook group that talks about stuff related to that race. Those are really cool because you'll get a lot of veterans that have done the race many times, and they can answer these questions better and faster than anybody, and really even give you more information that gives you a really good heads up. So try to look for that on Facebook to see what you can find. Usually you're close enough to a town that you can get some supplies if you need it, but if you need to pack it with you or bring it from home, be sure you know and you're ready to do that. Be sure you pack trekking poles. If you're going to be doing a race that's got a lot of elevation gain, I've found that trekking poles are really helpful. So throw those in your supply bag if you get the chance. Not necessary that you have to have that, but can be useful and helpful. I definitely don't use them for a lot of the races, but the bigger ones, the 200 milers, definitely I used them for all 3 of those, Bigfoot, Tahoe, and Moab. For the 100 milers, I hadn't used them, but for Mohican, I wish I had. There's lots of climbing on that one, and that would have been helpful. Let's see. So when you're choosing a crew, I'm more of a solo runner. I like to do these races on my own. It just seems to be a little bit easier logistically for me. But it is very nice to have a crew. But you need to choose them wisely. If you've got a crew that doesn't really know what they're doing, it could be a lot of stress on you that is unnecessary. Doing these races are stressful as it is, so you kind of want to have a crew that at least understands a little bit of what you're going through and how to help you if they need to. So let me explain that a little bit. If you're doing your very first 100 miler and you're just bringing your spouse with you and your kids, and you're going along and you're doing the race, and you get to a point where you're just having some issues, you're really exhausted, you haven't slept, you're low on calories, you're dehydrated, you got a lot of pain everywhere, you're getting delirious, and you get to your crew and your spouse is complaining about this and complaining about that, and the kids are doing this, and they need your attention and your help. It's just kind of a nightmare. So it's just tough. It's just tough to do that when you're in such a low vibration, low state, when you need help yourself to pull yourself out of it, whether it be to refocus on the race in some sort, put on some sort of music playlist, movie, podcast, audiobook, eat something. Usually, more times than not, you need calories or electrolytes. So try that first. But these uphills. Talking and climbing is a challenge today. Whew. So, come on, Ollie. You want to choose a crew that ideally has done a race before. Doesn't have to be a 100-miler. If they're a runner in general, they're going to kind of understand when you come into an aid station or you come in to see your crew and say, I'm having these blisters, or I'm having this issue or problem, and they're like, I understand, I'll help you out. Sometimes it's just changing into warm clothes, or getting certain snacks or food that you need or that you like. I crewed for one person, and he wanted candy, a specific and certain kind of candy at a certain time of the race. So we had planned that and set that up, and I had it ready for him when he wanted it, stuff like that. So it's kind of nice when you have a crew that gets what you're going through as much as they can. Ideally, they are runners and they've done the race before. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be the case. It could be somebody that has followed your training and supports you a lot, and you just communicate very well with them and get through the race just fine. Consider also the crew and what their abilities are. I've had crews that don't run at all, or very, very little, including my husband. He runs, but he's not going to go and do a 20-mile stretch with me. Never has. I doubt he ever will. And that's totally fine. But I know what his limits are, and I know what he can do. He's very helpful to me at a race for moral support. He's so positive and so happy when we're doing these races. So just coming into the aid station to see him and see his energy and hear there's always something crazy that's going on with him. So hearing whatever story has happened with him, that's always uplifting to me and fun. I don't necessarily need him to go run the last 20 miles with me, but it is nice to have him supporting me and being there and looking forward to seeing him at an aid station or wherever we plan to meet. It's also nice for him to drive home or start driving when we're done with the race, because you will be exhausted, and definitely don't drive home when you are too tired to do that. You don't want to get into an accident on your way back. So many times I have car camped, slept, had a nice nap in the car after the race, and then when I felt rested and ready to go, then I would start the drive home. And then when I get tired again, I'd stop at a rest area or a gas station, take another nap, and keep going. So it's totally doable, but just be safe about it. So that's what I would do with a crew. If you use a crew at all, again, most of the time I don't have a crew. I just personally, for myself, find it easier logistically to focus on the race and kind of buckle down and get it done when I'm solo and doing it on my own. But I will say it is very nice to have a crew member with you to run some tough sections of trails, or to run the last little bit of the race when you're so tired. The last 10 miles is great to have somebody you could just follow and not have to worry about navigating or anything like that. So having a crew is both good and a challenge. So choose wisely when you're doing it. The more races that you do, the more understanding you'll have about what you need and what you prefer. But just starting out, you might want to consider these things. So, and let me think. What else? What else do I consider? Well, when you do choose a race, you definitely want to see what kind of terrain it is in the weather. Just always expect rain. It doesn't matter where you are, what the conditions are, whether it says no rain and complete sun, it seems to always rain. So always, no matter what, be prepared for rain. Be ready for that. But also look at other. Oh, hello. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me grab them. I apologize. All right, you guys. Come here, Summer. Have fun.
Thank you.
So, we're on a mountain bike course. Got to share it today. Here they come. Okay, definitely consider the terrain of where you're going to be racing. Always count on the rain, but also try to do some research and see what conditions you may encounter, and I'll give you some examples. So one race I did, I did not realize that there would be a section that was pretty high in altitude, and it was covered in snow and ice. That section took forever, walking on blocks of ice that I had no idea to expect or prepare for. Had I known that, then I would have been more prepared for that section, because my water bladder and hose completely froze in that section. So I had to do the whole 21 miles of extensive climbing. It was 5,000 feet of elevation in this 21 mile stretch with no water. So that was fun. Had I known that and been prepared, I could have handled that a little bit better. It's doable. You could get through it. You just don't want to be completely miserable while you're doing it. Let's see, severe mud. I've done tons of races where it's rained hard while the race is going on or before the race has happened, and the mud is ridiculous, and you're spending tons of time slipping and sliding and falling in the mud. Those races would be good to know about, so that you can bring some trekking poles and try to battle that, or even a pair of shoes that you can switch out once you get through the muddy section, to battle that. I've had races that were in a area that was completely exposed, so you're going to want to have a heads up on that too, because if the weather turns bad, you want to just have a little extra rain gear or protection from the wind, the rain, the sun. Have sunscreen and be prepared for that. So that would be a good thing to know. Also, you need to know where the aid stations are located. With the 50 milers, 100 milers, there's usually an aid station that's pretty close to each other, so you're not going a whole lot more than 5 or so, 6 miles, maybe 10 at the most, between aid stations. Once you get into the 200-mile distances, you have plenty of stretches where you're going 20 plus miles without any aid at all. So know where your aid stations are and how much supplies to bring in those stretches. Always bring an extra jacket. Always carry some sort of poncho or rain gear in case you run into an issue. Always bring extra calories. Made that mistake so many times, can't even count. Even when you don't think you're going to need the calories or what the case is, bring something extra. Throw in an extra bar or two. One guy, he was smart. He had a baggie of tailwind as an emergency. And there has been plenty of times when I've either miscalculated how much water and food I would need between aid stations, or, and this has happened, when I thought I would be meeting my crew, and then for one reason or another I didn't. Either we missed each other. One race I was going a little faster than expected, so I came and went at an aid station before meeting my crew and had to do the next stretch without anything because the race aid station had not opened up yet, so they didn't have any food or water for us. So I was counting on my crew to be there, and then they weren't there. So that was a problem, and I had hit a horrible wall in that stretch, not having enough calories. It was pretty rough. It took a while to recover from. I finished the race, barely, but it does put in quite the challenge when you are expecting your crew and then you don't have the supplies that you need. So throw in a little extra calories, even if it's a small baggie of tailwind. I do that sometimes just in case. You could throw it in your water bottle, you get some extra calories, that'll get you to the next aid station until you can get what you need. So learn from my mistake, my many mistakes. So let me think, what else to consider? Something that's kind of fun that I like to do is reward yourself after these races. You know, after you finish these races, it's such an accomplishment. It's so much fun. It's really quite the experience to go through. You know, plan to take some time to write down some stuff. What I do is and many times during the race, I'll have the voice to text on my phone, and while I'm at certain points in the race, I will voice or make notes about certain things that are happening, certain things that I'm feeling, different things that have gone wrong or gone right that I want to remember, but I want to remember in kind of real time so that I can put it into my race report and have as much accuracy as possible. So make some notes if you can during the race or right after the race. Jot down some notes. I try to jot down time frames too. It helps me remember exactly when in the race certain things are happening. And then by kind of seeing a pattern, you can learn what your strategy and what your body does. For example, I noticed, and by taking all these notes and kind of seeing what I do, I've always noticed in the 30 to 45 mile range is when I always have the biggest problems. It seems to be when I hit the wall, or a wall if I'm going to hit one, and have calorie problems, have shoe problems, whatever the case may be, you name it, it's happened. And it usually is around that time frame for me. So if I can get through mile 35 to 45, I'm usually pretty good for the race. I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be consistently how I operate. But by taking notes and seeing how things go precisely, you can kind of see a pattern of what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what to be prepared for. So now I bring extra calories, definitely for the first half of the race, to counteract any issues that I may have. Not to say that it won't happen later on in the race, it just seems to be the major problems for me happen in that time frame for whatever reason. So make notes, take pictures, celebrate, be proud of yourself that you got through such an amazing race. These races really are incredible. And like I said before in another video, to me they're almost like relationships. A whole race experience, you're going to have extreme highs, extreme lows. You're going to figure out strategy. You're going to have to communicate, whether it be with yourself or your crew or other people. You're going to have to improvise, handle issues, expect the unexpected, but you're going to see beautiful views, have amazing memories, take pictures, make incredible friends. The ultra community is like none other. And so embrace all that and enjoy it. Document what you can, share with others so that they can learn and be prepared as well. The more information you can put out there about a race, the more other people can relate to it, and it could be helpful for them. So, you know, I try to eat as clean as I can most of the time, but after a race, if there's something that I'm really craving, I'll make it a point to go out and treat myself to that, or, you know, hit a restaurant on the way home from the race and just celebrate, enjoy the whole experience, whether it be on my own or with whoever came with me. So that's always fun, but plan something fun to look forward to, so when you're doing the race you can look forward to those things. Yep. And consider having something else on your calendar after you complete the race. So maybe you'll decide in a year to do 2 or 3 races or more. Kind of plan out what you intend to do and start doing research about all of that stuff so that you don't run into post-race blue issues. I have a whole video on that that you might want to check out, because that can be a little tough and a challenge to get through if you don't have anything planned after you've completed your race. So consider that. And let's see. A warning, I haven't really run into this issue, but one thing I have seen a lot of runners do, and it's been kind of stressful for them, is having a plane ticket right after the race to get home, which I'm sure is great and works out well, but I've seen it not work out. So either they've had to DNF for one reason or another, but then they have to sit there for a day or 2 or longer waiting for their plane accommodations to happen, or they're doing the race and it's taken them a lot longer than they expected, whether it be weather, gear issue, calorie problem, whatever the case, and they expected to do the race and finish it in a certain period of time, and it's taken them much longer, and then they're under the gun the whole time to finish and race to the airport. It just seems so miserable and difficult for them, and how stressed they are. So try to take that in consideration if you can. You know, it's easier to wait a little bit of time than to not have to rush and be so stressed out to get to the airport after a race. So take that into consideration when you're trying to make your accommodations, so you're not quite as stressed out. But I mean, it does work out a lot for people, but just it doesn't always. So, and let me see. As far as specifically for a race, those are the things that I really try to look at. One other thing with aid stations and food. If you have a special diet, you'll definitely need to put in some food in your drop bags and be ready for that. Usually there are a lot of aid stations where you can have your drop bags. Throw in some extra shoes, some extra warm clothes, and whatever food or medication that you need if you take medication. Have all of that in your drop bags, even if you don't think you're going to need it. I've run into that many times where I've needed warmer clothes or extra food, and luckily I've had it. Aid stations are wonderful, and some races are better than others with the food. I've gone to races where the food is just incredible and so good, and they make quesadillas and hamburgers and soup and everything that you could imagine. But then I've been to some races that have the bare minimum. You're going to get some oranges, some candy and pretzels, and water. So, and that's okay too, as long as you're aware of it and you kind of know what to expect. If you're doing a 100-mile race, you kind of want to know what is there. And not to be picky, but I did run into that issue before. I was doing a race, a 100-miler, and they didn't have a whole lot of food, and the sandwiches that they had was just smothered in mayonnaise. I despise mayonnaise. I won't eat anything that has touched mayonnaise. And so besides some oranges and chips, I really didn't have anything to eat. So that was a really tough race for me because the calories were so just not enough. If I had done more research and been more aware of what they served, I could have thrown some extra food into my drop bags to counteract all that. Just do some research of what you can and find out as much as you can before you go. In my race reports, they'll be listed how all the food is, almost like a food critic, but it's good to know. So bring whatever you possibly think you may need. Even if you don't think you need it, throw it in there anyway. Always expect the rain, so if you have a dry shirt to change into or an extra poncho, that's always nice to have. Ponchos not only work for the rain, but for wind and a little extra warmth if you needed it as an emergency. Extra pair of gloves, a hat, a beanie, and then, I hate to say it, but even if you don't need to use that stuff, it's nice to sit at a picnic table and have your bag that's all cushy with your nice warm clothes and use it as a pillow to take a cat nap before you keep going on the race. Been there and done that. So, do what you can. Usually the races are very good about getting all your supplies and bags to you at the end of the race so you can collect them. I don't put anything valuable that I can't afford to lose. You can go to Goodwill and get a lot of clothes, beanies, gloves that are really cheap, extra shirts, sweaters, or like sweatshirts, hoodies, just to throw into your bag for an emergency in case you needed it, and it's not going to cost you too much. Throw in some extra socks, because sometimes it's just nice to have clean, dry socks after you've been racing for many hours. So, and I always throw in an extra pair of shoes most of the time, because you never know if you're going to have an issue with one of them, and then you can look forward to changing those out. So, or if you have a crew, they can have it ready for you. When I've had a crew, I usually have a backpack for them with a whole bunch of stuff that I may need, and wherever I see them along the course, they'll just have that backpack, and I'll just take whatever if I need it, I take it. If I don't, I just don't. But they have the same backpack with all the stuff that I know that's in there every time I meet up with them, which has been kind of helpful. So that's something that you can consider doing too. Let's see. For anybody that's going to crew, just take into consideration that these races can get really tough, and a lot of people go through some pretty severe pain with chafing, with cramps, with pulling a muscle, with twisting an ankle, with, heaven forbid, if you have to DNF. Those things happen, and it's pretty rough on the runner. So try to be understanding and compassionate, and try to empathize with what they're going through, and that's usually really helpful for a runner when they are upset or when they are hitting a really bad wall. I've hit walls that were so rough that I couldn't eat solid food. I had to sit there and just sit on the ground, take a break, and Matt, my husband, brought me a spinach drink, and I just sipped on it until I felt like I could see straight again and keep going on the race. And then I grabbed 2 carrots and took off, and was able to complete the race, luckily, but it was questionable for a while because I was feeling so bad. A lot of times, again, you just need calories. But if you have a crew that is understanding and will be patient with you and take the time to just let you take a break, get some calories in, it's usually very helpful for the runner and the whole experience. And that's nice to think about. So be easy on them. The runners, it's tough. These races are tough, especially when you're running through the rain and the snow and the mud and the wind and the thunderstorms and the severe hot and the severe cold. So altitude, climbing, crossing water, gear malfunctions, lack of calories, frozen water, you name it, it can happen. And you can bounce back from it, but you just have to give it some time, make a plan, sit still for a moment, have a snack, and regroup, and then keep going. And usually you can overcome it. Again, don't take any risks. If you're having a medical problem, don't be dumb. If you're having a severe medical issue, listen to your body, or a professional, of course. And oh, hello. Sorry about that. They're the welcoming crew.
Oh, they are super cute.
Ah.
Hi.
So just try to be understanding with the runner. They might not be feeling very well. Most likely they'll be in some pain, or delirious, sleep deprived, and very, very grouchy. So try to work with them as best you can. Expect that these things happen in a race more often than not, and it can be overcome, but the more support and understanding you can give the runner, the better. So, I hope you have found some of this information helpful. Take what you can from it, forget the rest of it. Hopefully there's a few things to consider that maybe you had not or didn't think about. And if you have any more suggestions for other people that I did not cover, feel free to leave them in the comments so other people can have that knowledge heads up too. And thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.